back to my channel where it's all about collecting movies and TV series on Blu-ray, 4K, and DVD from all over the world, as you can see behind me. And today we're going to be doing a countdown on the top 10 underrated movies you've probably never seen on Blu-ray and 4K Ultra HD. And these are titles that I really feel like don't get enough love. Titles that maybe you've never seen, you've heard of, or you've seen at the store but you've never picked up. And a lot of these are titles that I've watched numerous times but that I really felt like a lot of people just don't know about. And a lot of you like these when I do these videos, so I decided to do another one today, kind of giving you a bunch of these hidden titles that probably you've never seen most of these movies. And maybe you've seen one or two, but there's a lot of these that you probably either missed in theaters years ago or things like that. So we're gonna do this and start off from the least all the way up to number 1 and do a countdown here. So number 10 is gonna be Tequila Sunrise. And Tequila Sunrise is one of those films that I kind of placed it in the category of it's a noir, like mystery, drama, crime, romance. And I know that sounds like a mishmash of things, but it really is. I mean, it came out in 1988, and it's basically got Mel Gibson, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Kurt Russell in it. And I really like all three of those actors. And it's an 80s film. And the reason why I say it's more noir is it's got a very, very like 80s color saturated look to it. I mean, even the front cover kind of gives you that feel. It's filmed in California and on the beaches, and it just really does give you that 80s vibe. The music in it is great. And I think that's maybe what kind of sold the movie even more so is it's got some great 80s music in it that plays at just the right time. And it's got drama in it, some romance, but there is a bunch of mystery. And I said it's kind of like a crime action film towards the end. And that's where I thought the mystery in it was really good. I think Mel Gibson is great in it. He's at top form in this. Michelle Pfeiffer is young in this, and I always like Michelle Pfeiffer. My wife's a big fan of her as well, and she really liked the film as well. I had not seen this film, to be honest with you, until about 3 weeks ago when we bought it. And I kind of tried it out of the blue. I bought it because there wasn't really many reviews out there. The trailers really weren't that great for it, so you really didn't think much about it. And when it came out in theaters, it did decent, but it wasn't like a huge hit. And that's where I feel like this film kind of didn't get a whole lot of love. I watched it, and I actually thought it was really, really good. My wife did too. She said she was surprised she hadn't heard more about it because Kurt Russell's great in it as a cop. Obviously, Mel Gibson's great in it as kind of the con man in it. And then Michelle Pfeiffer kind of gets caught in the middle. And that's where I said it's kind of got a really good vibe going for it. And it is rated R, I'll tell you that off the bat. Now, as I go through each of these on the countdown, I will tell you the ratings on them. That way you kind of know this one is rated R. And at first I thought, man, you know, it's going to have a ton of violence and language and sexual content. And they actually did really good with it. It wasn't heavily violent at all. There was some language in it, and I will say there is some F words, things like that, but it wasn't too heavily overdone. And then there is one scene of basically sensuality in it, but you can't really see anything because it's hidden behind basically the covers and things like that. But that scene you'll know is coming, so if it is something you want to skip, and you want to skip it like we did, you can actually do that. You'll know it's coming, obviously, and you can skip it. They lead up to it very easily. So other than that, it's a very light R is what I would consider it. But it's a very entertaining film, and if you haven't seen this one, it's a very noir, mystery, crime, drama, romance, like I said, that I suggest giving it a chance because it comes in at number 10 on underrated films. Coming in at number 9 is going to be State of Grace. Now this one I just recently imported, and this is by Second Sight. And if any of you remember Second Sight, they're that company that has done numerous releases that I've gotten recently from the UK that actually they did The Flight of the Navigator, and they do a great job with their remasters and restorations. This is another Blu-ray that comes in a black case from Second Sight, which I really like. It looks like a 4K, but it's actually a Blu-ray case and it's a Blu-ray inside. Now, State of Grace is one of those like gangster flicks, and if you remember like The Departed, or I think of Goodfellas is more like it. Goodfellas came out around the same time as this. And Goodfellas got a lot more recognition and people went to see that. And State of Grace kind of flew under the radar. It's an Irish mobster in New York film. So it's a crime, drama, action thriller. And it really is a thriller. You're really wondering what's going to happen. And it's got Sean Penn, Ed Harris, Gary Oldman, and they're great in it. I mean, to be honest with you, Sean Penn is top form here. Ed Harris is in top form. And Gary Oldman is great. I mean, Gary Oldman's kind of crazy in it. But it's a really good gangster film. Now, I will point out a couple of things. Those of you that live in the UK that watch this, you're fine because this is Region B locked. So, Second Sight did remaster this and they did a great job with it. It is beautiful. This is one of the only releases that is still available to buy worldwide on Blu-ray. So, if you're going to import this to the US, which I will put the links for everything I'm talking about in the description section below. So that way you get the exact releases that I'm talking about. So I will put this one down there, but remember, this one is region B locked. So if you go to buy this and you live in the US, you will need a region-free or multi-region Blu-ray player that unlocks, and that way you can play this. If you have a regular US Blu-ray player that has not been unlocked and is not a region-free one, you won't be able to play this. So take that with a caveat. You will need to make sure you have a region-free player for this. Now, the rest of the titles I go through, you don't have to worry about them being region B locked, but this was the only one that is region B locked on underrated titles. But if you are looking for suggestions on a good region-free player, I will list in the description section below as well the personal region-free players that I use and that I have bought and own right now that I watch all these on. Those will be listed down in the description section as well if you want to check those out. I will list the region-free players that I suggest and I personally use down there in the description section below. But Second Sight did a great job with this. Now, this is, like I said, kind of one of those gangster films. And Sean Penn basically comes back to New York, and a lot of his family is in the Irish mob. And if you liked Goodfellas, you're going to love this film. I really thought they're completely different stories, but I kind of felt State of Grace was actually better. And I saw this originally, it was released on VHS and DVD. I had it from VHS and then DVD. And I always liked the film, but it didn't come out on Blu-ray in the US. And so I've waited and just found out about it from Second Sight. So that's why I did import this. And Second Sight did a great job with the remaster on this. It is gorgeous looking on this. And no issues playing it. I played it in my region free player. There's no speed up. 24 frames per second, a full 1080p HD picture on this. And it is one of those things that has a bunch of special features on it. Goes behind the scenes, interviews. And I really enjoyed this film. So if you like those like gangster, like Godfather, or I really feel like Goodfellas, you're going to love this film. I suggest picking it up because it did not get enough love. And I really feel the ending kind of just, I mean, it's got a lot of things going for it at the end. And really just kind of like amps it up at the end. So definitely one of those underrated films. And if you've seen any of these, let me know in the comment section below. What of these you think are underrated? What ones you haven't seen that you want to pick up that you're going to? I always love to hear from everybody, so start the conversation down in the comment section below. That way I know if you've seen any of these or if you're going to pick up some of these because you've never seen them. Because it's always interesting to see what films you guys think are underrated, what films you've never heard of. Because I know a lot of the times when I do these top 10 type things, I get a ton of comments from people saying, hey, I've never heard of that film. I've never seen that film. Man, I really enjoyed that film. So let me know about these as we go through these. We're going to get to the next one here. All right, coming in at number 8 is going to be The Quick and the Dead on 4K. Now, the 4K on this, for all of you that are questioning whether it's worth the upgrade, the 4K on this is amazing. And the price on it, right now, you're looking at right around 10 or 12 bucks. So for 10 or 12 bucks, definitely upgrade your Blu-ray because this comes with a Blu-ray copy and the 4K, so you're future-proofed. But Quick and the Dead gets a lot of hate because a lot of people just didn't understand it or never saw it because of Leonardo DiCaprio in it. They kind of didn't give it a chance, as well as Sharon Stone. There's a lot of people out there that I constantly hear that say they can't stand Leonardo DiCaprio and they can't stand Sharon Stone because they were both in it. They never gave this film a chance. If you like Westerns, even if you don't like Westerns, but you just like a very good, fast-moving, interesting story, I mean, this film's a Western action drama. It is rated R, just like State of Grace was and Tequila Sunrise, and I'm not meaning to have all R-rated films, but for the first few here, there is some R-rated ones. But anyhow, The Quick and the Dead, it's not too heavy in the violence, it's not too heavy in anything, there's really not much in it. There's some language and some Western violence, some shootouts. You will see blood from the shootouts, but it's a Western. I mean, you really got to expect that. And I really feel like they honored a lot of those classic Western films, like, you know, Tombstone and all of those compiled together. I really felt like The Quick and the Dead was one you need to add to your collection if you haven't seen it yet. I really thought that Leonardo DiCaprio as the arrogant gunslinger was great in it. Russell Crowe gets a lot of hate because he wasn't in it super long. I love his character in it. And Gene Hackman as the over-the-top villain in it. Come on. What can I say? Gene Hackman's great in this. I mean, he literally will just shoot you and smile at you. And that's where I think like it really sold the film. And a lot of people, because Sharon Stone was in it, just didn't give it a chance. And I feel like you really should. Now, do I really think Sharon Stone's amazing in it? I think she's the weakest part of the movie, though I really did like Leonardo DiCaprio in it. And I do like Leonardo DiCaprio in a lot of his films. No, I don't love Titanic, but I do think as an actor, especially as he got older, he's done some really great films. So I don't hate him in this. I do think Sharon Stone's the weakest part of it, but the rest of them, there's such a great supporting cast. you really got to pick up and watch this film if you haven't seen it, because I mean, heck, they really stick to the wild, wild west feel for it. And if you like westerns, it's rated R for Western violence. It's just a fun, exciting Western ride. So let me know if you've seen this one, but 4K wise, the 4K upgrade is worth it. I'd say it's at least 60% better than what the Blu-ray was, especially color-wise. There's some dark scenes inside, like saloons. Then when they go to the bright outside, just it really pops on the 4K on this. So in that sense, I suggest picking this one up. Now, this one did come out in 1995, so it is one of those films that it's not obviously going to be something that recently came out. And so that's where I said I think they did a great job with it. All right, coming into number 7 is going to be Mars Attacks. Now, this one's a hard one because I talked to a lot of people, and as you all know, I've been collecting for over 35 years. Well, a lot of people say, well, I've seen Mars Attacks or I've never heard of it. So it's kind of a half and half. I wasn't sure if this one was going to be considered underrated by some of you, because some people say they've seen it and love it because it's Tim Burton, and other people say they haven't. So I'd probably say it's half and half. So that's where I kind of wasn't sure about this one, but I added it because I'd probably say to me it's underrated because of the amount of people that say they haven't seen it. Mars Attacks is basically a sci-fi comedy action adventure. And when I say a sci-fi comedy, it really is. There is some wacky, zany stuff that happened in this. And I love the aliens in this. I don't care who you are, but the puppet animation they use and the things on the aliens was so great in it that to this day, it's still one of my favorite films to pick up and watch. And this is actually my sealed copy because my other copy got damaged. So I have one that's sealed that I collect in case you're wondering, and one that's not. But anyhow, I do love the film, and I think that Jack Nicholson, Glenn Close, Annette Bening, Pierce Brosnan, Danny DeVito, and I'm only naming off like a small quarter. Michael J. Fox is in this film. There is so many stars. Sarah Jessica Parker. I mean, I'm not even listing them all off. There are so many stars in this film that's really an ensemble piece, and I really love the film. To this day, I love this film, and I pick up and watch it all the time. But a lot of people just say they've never seen it. It is rated PG-13. So this one is rated PG-13, and it came out in 1996. And it does have sci-fi, fantasy, violence, and brief sensuality in it. Because they kind of play off of, like, the aliens don't know what sex is and things like that. And it's not real crass or anything like that. But the film itself is absolutely hilarious. And to me, it is one of Tim Burton's best satirical comedies, I feel like. And it kind of feels like, if you've ever seen Edward Scissorhands, if they would have taken the world of Edward Scissorhands where things are very like every house being a certain color, everybody mowing their lawns on certain days, it's very much making kind of fun of the world that we live in. This goes way beyond that. And this is one of those things that you watch it, the more you watch it, the more you will pick up on. And that's where I feel like if you haven't seen this film, gotta see this. If you've seen it, go back and watch it again, because the more you watch this film, the more I find little hidden things that are in there that are like, man, that's so relevant. Even though it was filmed in 1996, I mean, there's a lot of relevant comedy in this that applies to the world we live in, and I really enjoy this film. All right, let's get to the next one. All right, coming in at number 6 is going to be Devil. Now, this one a lot of people were surprised about because they've never seen this. My family hadn't seen this. My wife hadn't seen this. And I didn't tell them who actually wrote the film until after they saw it, because they originally liked the writer of it. But he had some really big flops. Like, he just really hadn't had any good films in a while. So he actually wrote this, and they didn't advertise that when this came out to see if people would go see it. And a lot of people I talked to have never seen this film and never given it a chance because it kind of went under the radar. But Devil takes place in an elevator. And the Devil title is actually the button of the elevator, which I think is clever. This is actually written by M. Night Shyamalan, and I'm a big M. Night Shyamalan film, though I did not like his Avatar movie. I thought maybe it was held back by the studio, which is what caused problems, but he took a break and came back to the world of what I call horror, thriller, mystery, suspense movies, and he did a great job with this film. Now, this film is rated PG-13, and it did come out in 2010. And it's kind of one of those psychological, supernatural chiller thrillers. If you like horror, chiller, thriller movies, you're going to love this film. Basically, a group of people get on an elevator. The elevator breaks down. And the movie basically takes place of them trying to get out of the elevator. But things are happening when the elevator's lights are going off. And man, I don't want to give the whole thing away because I feel like that's part of the excitement of watching this. So I've given you enough to get into it. So that's what you need to know. Basically, takes place in an elevator, and it is great. If you like those M. Night Shyamalan movies that were great originally, like Signs and things like that, you're gonna love this film. And I highly, highly suggest picking up and buying this because it's well worth it. The cost of it's not much of anything. And I'll put it down in the description section below all of these, but the cost of it's not very much these days. I think it runs for like $6 to maybe at most $9. And man, if you want a good horror thriller that's not heavy on the blood, gore, or violence, I mean, it's rated PG-13 for violence, some brief disturbing images, thematic material, and brief language. So, like I said, it's one of those films that gives you the chills, gives you the scares, but doesn't get so bad that then you're sitting there and you're grossed out. So that's why, to me, this is underrated. A lot of people have never given this a chance. I suggest picking this one up, especially for a horror thriller chiller. You're going to have a fun time. All right, coming in at number 5 is going to be The Hurt Locker. And this one I absolutely love. I personally think it's one of those near perfect war action movies that I just love to go back and watch. I've probably seen this about 7 times now. I remember seeing it at an indie theater because it was never released worldwide in regular theaters. You had to go to like those smaller theaters that would play indie films. And that's where I actually saw this, and I love it. It's got 2 Avengers in it. It's got Hawkeye in it, the actor that played Hawkeye, and Falcon from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Just in case you're wondering, this is before they were both on the Avengers. So I really enjoyed them in this and thought they were great actors in this. And heck, Catherine Bigelow does a great job directing in this too. And it's one of those films that I just really think keeps the action going. The story's so relevant, but it doesn't get so heavy into the gore and violence that you can't watch it for a war film. And that's where my wife really enjoyed it. I took her with me, and it's rare that I can take her to war films. So those of you gals that are watching this as well, this movie does do a good job without getting too heavy into gore. Like, my wife does not like gore at all and things like that in war films. And it is rated R for war, violence, and language, but it's not Saving Private Ryan style or things like that where it gets so extreme in it. And it does a good job keeping things moving. If somebody gets shot, it kind of moves on. And it does a great job with that. But if you have not picked up this film, you need to add this one to your collection. And I really hope for this film that they do a full 4K remaster and release it on 4K Ultra HD, because this one would look amazing. And it's such a great war film about a bomb squad that basically they go out and defuse IEDs and bombs that basically in Iraq and things like that, that people wear bombs on their chests when they come and attack the military or things like that. And it's about him going through the towns and defusing them. And man, that opening scene just gets you, where he's sitting there trying to defuse a bomb and it's about to go off, and man, so well acted and so well directed. You got to pick up this film, and that's why this one came in at number 5. And this one came out in 2008. And like I said, great war action drama. Let me know in the comment section below if you've ever seen any of these too. All right, before we get to the next one here, I've got something I want to cover real quick with all of you, so make sure you stick around here. Make sure to give this video a like for me. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Click that subscribe button and the bell notification right next to it. That way you don't miss out on any of these top 10 videos, hidden releases from all over the world. As you know, I like to do all this exclusive content here on my YouTube channel, so make sure you click that subscribe button and the bell notification next to it. That way you don't miss out on any of this hidden exclusive content that you're only going to get on my YouTube channel. And you can follow me on my Instagram or my Facebook, which is the name of the channel, In Search of Physical Media. And there's always hidden content on there, little reviews. I post about deals and things like that that are coming out. And always check the community section on this YouTube channel. I post extra hidden stuff on there as well, so make sure you check that community section often as well. I post little hidden things on there as well. And as always, all of the stuff I'm talking about will be listed in the description section right below this video. So all the links for every one of these Blu-rays and 4Ks that I'm talking about will always be listed in the description section right below this video. You click that box and you go down there and buy any of these you don't have. All right, we've got a lot of exciting stuff to cover here in this top 10. Let's dive right back into this. All right, coming in at number 4 is gonna be Shutter Island. Now, I did tell you I liked Leonardo DiCaprio. This is one of those films. It is by Martin Scorsese. And it's kind of off-key for Martin Scorsese. It's not his normal films that he does. He does a lot of gangster, dramas, things like that. This is a thriller, mystery, horror, psychological thriller. And when I say that, it really is. Man, do you have to think. And when you get done with this film, it makes you want to go back and watch it again. And I've probably seen this film 3 or 4 times. And this one is on 4K now, and it is released in the US on 4K. It's released in other countries as well. But this is the US edition, and it does come with the 4K and the Blu-ray and the digital. So, for those of you that want to pick this up in the US, even if you don't have a 4K player yet, I suggest picking this up on the 4K edition because it does come with the Blu-ray as well. And that just future-proofs you. That way, you don't have to upgrade this later on. But the 4K on this does look great over the Blu-ray, especially for most of the film is filmed inside kind of like an Alcatraz. And inside there is very dark, lots of dark scenes that are really hard to see. The 4K does a great job with the dark to light that you can still see in the dark scenes without it being so heavy where the crush was on the Blu-ray. The Blu-ray had such deep crush that sometimes you really couldn't see the dark scenes at all. This one, the clarity on the 4K drastically makes the film a better viewing experience, especially for those of you that enjoy the film or haven't seen it. You want to watch it on 4K for the first time because you'll be able to understand and see things quite a bit better without it taking away the eerie effect. It still keeps the scene dark, it just makes it so that way the clarity is not so crushed out like it was on the Blu-ray. So that's kind of your quality because of the HDR. But Leonardo DiCaprio in this is phenomenal. And holy cow, watching this movie, by the end, you really don't get what happened. And you sit there, you have to think, and then you're like, whoa, and it hits you. And it is great. And Martin Scorsese does a great job. And as you can probably see on the pictures on here, it's got some creeps in it. So that's where I said it's kind of one of those, like, it's not bloody and gory horror, but it's really one of those like just psychological horror is what I call it, where basically that's my thing. I'm not into bloody horror, things like that. I just like psychological, basically makes you think, a real deep mystery, and you're on the edge of your seat, and there's things that make you jump, but it's not like gory and disgusting things that make you jump, and they did a great job with it. And it is rated R for disturbing, violent content, language, and some brief nudity. And here's the hard thing. I watched this film again, and I did not see any nudity in it because I'm very careful on what I watch and try to be very careful what I recommend as well, but I couldn't find the nudity on it. Maybe I missed it. So to that sense of it, I don't know if it's something that's hidden in the background you can't see, because otherwise I wouldn't have suggested it. But as far as that goes, if there is something that you know of, you can skip it because it is on Blu-ray. But it does, as far as the disturbing violent content, that's where I said to me it wasn't too over the top. It's kind of like they're in a psychological house where, you know, basically people are being treated back a long time ago for mental diseases and things. And there's things where it'll show like somebody like that looks creepy and things like that. So that's where I feel like more the violent content is. It's kind of like people like strapped up in those suits and they're sitting there screaming and things like that. Not that necessarily something bad's happening to them, but they're just sitting there because they're crazy, basically. So that kind of gives you an idea of what you're looking at. But if you like things that really, you got to think and you got to watch and pay attention to everything going on, this film does a great job. And I really do like Shutter Island. And I think it's a great movie to pick up and watch, especially if you like to feel a little bit creeped out without it being too bad. So let me know if you've seen this one, but this one I recommend on 4K. If you haven't picked this one up, it doesn't cost very much. I'd suggest picking this one up. And this one came out in 2010, so it's a more modern, not obviously super modern because we're in 2021, but you know, 11 years ago, things like that, you're still looking at, it's a really entertaining film. All right, number 3 is gonna be Road to Perdition. And this is one of my favorite underrated films that a lot of people have never heard of. It very briefly ran in theaters, and I actually remember that it was up against a bunch of other big films at the time, and it didn't make a whole ton of money. I think it was because it was released at the wrong time, but Tom Hanks is amazing in it, Paul Newman, and Jude Law. And this is one of Paul Newman's final films before he passed away. And Road to Perdition is basically, in my opinion, no, it's not The Godfather, but holy cow, is this a love letter to the original first Godfather film. And completely different story, so you're just basically getting the Godfather world with basically that feeling, but a completely different story. And Tom Hanks is phenomenal in it. His son, who's in this, that travels with him, was pretty good in it. And Tom Hanks, though, is absolutely outstanding in this. And Sam Mendes is actually the director of it, and I think that it's one of his most underrated films that a lot of people just never gave credit to. I would love to see this on 4K. If they ever put this on 4K, I'd buy it in a heartbeat, because I think the film is so beautifully done, and the ending still gets you. I mean, if you've seen the film or you haven't seen this film, the ending, just kind of like The Godfather's, it gets you. It's a solid, man, that was a good film. That was something that, man, you really felt like you really enjoyed. Now, this is more violent, though, I will say. Just like The Godfather, this is rated R for violence and language. So this is a more violent gangster flick. So this is like a gangster crime drama action film. And when I say gangster, if you've ever seen a gangster film, there's shootouts and lots of them. Holy cow. And I will say that that's what you're going into when you get this. Is it's basically just a lot of shootouts, know that there's tons of story with it. There's a reason for it. But I'm saying violence-wise, that's why it got rated R. Came out in 2002, so this was a while ago. Almost 20 years ago as I'm making this video. So it was a while ago, but Tom Hanks is so good in it. And the story to me just catches you so well that this is why this is underrated. Most of the people I talk to have never seen Road to Perdition, and they said it just kind of went under the radar and they've never seen it. And Jude Law is great in it as well. So if you haven't seen this one and you like those gangster flicks, like I said, anything like The Godfather, Goodfellas, any of those, you're gonna love this one. Highly recommend picking up this gangster flick. All right, let's get to the next one. All right, coming in at number 2 is gonna be 61, and this is a Billy Crystal film. He actually directed this film. This is one of my all-time favorite sports films of all time, and I absolutely love it. It's about Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris, and they are two of my all-time favorite baseball players, and I love baseball. I've always been a huge fan of baseball, and the New York Yankees are my favorite baseball team. That's simply because that's where I was born, and my father was a Yankees fan, my grandfather was a Yankees fan, we went to Yankee Stadium, so there's a lot of history behind that. But the film itself is such a great film. I mean, the intro on here is so great. It says, "Why did America have room in its heart for only one hero?" And that's so true. I mean, if you know the story of Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle and what happened with the chase for 61 home runs, it's a great story. And that's where this film is absolutely amazing. And I really hope this one also gets a 4K release, though the Blu-ray is great on this. Basically, the story of Roger Maris is he started hitting home runs and getting close to that title. And a lot of the history and nostalgia behind it was fans didn't want him to do that. And it's the story of what Roger Maris, who was a very quiet, kind of reserved baseball player, how he was treated and the things that went on to his family, and basically his run to getting those 61 home runs. And this was in the non-steroid era, so this is before that. And that's where the film is really, really interesting, because before the steroid era, this film basically is tied to when the steroid era broke the record of Roger Maris as well. And it's kind of an interesting watch nowadays because you see all of that Roger Maris went to, and it kind of puts to shame the steroid era and what they did during that time. But the film itself and what goes on with it and how Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris' story interacts with each other, and Thomas Jane and Barry Pepper as the main actors in this, I mean, holy cow. I personally think it was their best films ever. I mean, Barry Pepper I think was great in Saving Private Ryan, but in this, I personally think this was his best role he's ever been in, and he really, really does bring Roger Maris to life, and I love him for that. And that's where this film I think is great. It was released on HBO. This is full 1080p HD on Blu-ray, and it looks great. Tons of special features on it. DTS HD Master Audio. This one is Region A locked though. Don't know if this is released in other countries, but this one is Region A locked. But if you have not seen this sports film, it will bring a tear to your eye. I don't care whether you're a guy or you're a girl. You watch this film, and I don't care if you love the Yankees or you hate them, the historical context behind this film, and if you love sports, you've got to watch this film, because this is an underrated sports film, and it's better in my opinion than any Disney sports film, which everybody always talks about. This blows away any of those Disney sports films that have ever been released. Remember the Titans I loved, but this one is better than that. That's how good this is. So this is one of those underrated titles. You must pick this up and see this, and that's why this one came in at number 2, because it came out in 2001, and it's rated mature because of language and some of the things that go on in it, but it's not rated R, so basically this would be rated like PG-13 if it would have come out in theaters. But it was basically a mini-series movie on HBO, and man, it'll hit you in the feels, and this film is my favorite, all-time favorite sports film, and you'll love it if you haven't seen this. Make sure to pick this one up and watch this, and let me know in the comments below if you've seen this, because it's a sports historical drama, and it's so well done. All right, let's get to the number 1 here. All right, coming in at number 1, there's very few people that have seen this film, and when I talk about it, they're like, I've never seen that, or they think it's something else. Leon the Professional. Now, there's several cuts of the movie, and that's where this is hard, because some people have said they've seen one cut of it, The Professional, which was the US theatrical cut. Some people have said they've seen Leon. They're completely different movies in my opinions because of the cuts of them. My favorite is the international uncut version, the Leon, but anyhow, Luc Besson does an amazing job on this film, and this is basically the story of a hitman that basically, in a sense, adopts Natalie Portman and raises her. And it's a story of he uses guns and kind of violence in a sense to teach her, which is, I know you're probably thinking sounds horribly twisted. I never do that for my kids, but in this film, it's done so well as an allegory to life in a sense that at the end, I won't tell you what happens, but it is beautiful, and it will bring a tear to your eye how beautiful the film is done for how violent it is. And that's where it's a hard one for some people to stomach, because the violence is used as kind of a storytelling like narrative for it, and that's where a lot of people basically never watch the film. They read that basically it's rated R for scenes of strong graphic violence and for language, and that's where they say, I don't want to watch it for graphic violence. And it's hard to explain to somebody, because normally I don't suggest things that have strong graphic violence, but Leon the Professional, I mean, the hitman story behind it, he's got such a great role in it, and you just get so involved in his character himself. And basically he's quiet and he's silent, and the things he does is so quiet and silent, and he's raising Natalie Portman, and she's so loud and boisterous. And there's actually a scene in the extended uncut version, which is included in the 4K edition. So I will have this listed down in the description section below as well, but in the 4K edition, it comes with the theatrical cut and the extended uncut version. So you get both. And I suggest Leon the uncut version, but you do need to understand there is a scene in it where she basically, as a little girl, says she's falling in love with Leon, and it's kind of a weird scene, like, and I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't meaning that he was like a child molester or anything. He doesn't do anything with her, and he actually tells her that her feelings are misplaced, that she's just basically been abused her whole life, and that basically as a child she's so abused that she doesn't understand. And he's trying to teach her the difference between love, real love, and basically being treated kindly, and you know, the type of love she's thinking that she sees on all these TV shows about people kissing and making out. And she's a young girl, and she's impressionable, and she's been abused. And that's where this story just really has so many elements. And if you're finicky for violence, don't watch the film, because like I said, they use the violence in it to kind of be a storytelling narrative to teach you that he even gets to the point where he doesn't think violence is right. And that's where I said the violence is used to show that he's saying, hey, I'm done with this. I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want the violence in my life. I don't want the violence in my daughter's life, basically, that he's adopted now and is raising. I don't want a part of it. But he doesn't have a choice in some instances. And that's where the film is so well done. Gary Oldman as the villain. Boy, man, I told you about that other one that Gary Oldman's in, State of Grace. And man, in those two roles, Gary Oldman plays such a drastically different, like, over-the-top character. In this one, he is straight up psycho. And that's where I said, I mean, you're getting in for a wild ride in this, and I suggest, if you haven't seen the film, watch Leon first. It does have a lot of scenes, I said, that make you a little uncomfortable. You're supposed to be uncomfortable. So when you watch this, if you get a little uncomfortable, you're like, okay, and not for the violence making you uncomfortable. I'm talking about like the scene where, like I just said with Natalie Portman, you kind of get where, okay, whoa, what's going on here? But then it explains it, that he's like, no, you're misunderstanding the way life's supposed to be. And that's why I said this is so underrated, and a lot of people just never give this film a chance because of what it's rated. And they say, and they look at the cover and they say, well, I don't want to see it about some guy that goes around shooting people, and oh, it's got violence, and it's just about, that's not what the story. There's so much more to this film, and that's where when it says fascinating, I mean, it's an action drama is what it is. And it came out in 1994, and that was a long time ago. So now the film, to me, has such a great cult status. It just has not grown enough in cult status. Not enough people have watched this film or given it a chance. So the 4K, that's where I suggest you buy it, because the Blu-ray was rough and did not have both versions of the movie. So depending on which one you like better, you get them both included in this 4K Ultra HD remaster, and it does look great. It's the best it's ever looked, and with the HDR, it really pops. Just like you can see on this front cover, it's got a lot of noir like scenes with the way he films it, and the action adventure intro that it starts with, that's like such a great scene where it kind of shows the like flash of the gun and the movement, and then it goes to the brights, to the darks. Same with the end of it. It uses lights and darks and a lot of color and brights and darks in the scenes to kind of explain the emotion of what you're feeling for that scene. And that's where I said this film has so much more going for it than just an action movie. And any of you that haven't seen it, you're really going to be in for something that there's so many things that it teaches you. And at the end, what Natalie Portman says at the end, and basically what she goes through and how it changes her as a character, to me is just, it's just such a great ending, and it's just such a classic film. If you haven't seen it, you've got to add it to your collection. Just so many elements to this film that I can't even describe. So this comes in at number 1. My number one most underrated film that I'd say most people I talk to never give this film a chance because they either didn't understand it or they've never watched it because they didn't like the front cover or what it was rated for. So let me know in the comment section below if you've seen this one. I'm curious because there are a lot of people that have just never seen it, and I don't know that many people that watch films that I talk to regularly that have ever watched this or given this a chance. So that's my top 10 underrated films. Let me know if you thought some of those fit what you would consider to be underrated, but those are a lot of the ones that I feel like a lot of the times just really get missed or people don't give a chance. Like I talked about with the Leon, a lot of people just never give it a chance. Heck, most of my family and friends never watched it, and to this day I still tell them to watch it, and they're like, well, I don't want to watch it because of all the violence, and they really don't understand what's behind it. And that's how a lot of these films I felt like were, that a lot of people just didn't watch them because they misunderstood or didn't like the cover, or heck, when they came out in theaters, they had another film they went and see and then never watched this one later on. So make sure to pick some of these up, give them a try, and then let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love to hear from everybody. If you think some of these are underrated, let me know some of your underrated films. Let me know if you're going to watch some of these films. I always love to hear if you're going to watch some of these. As always, I will have all of these listed in the description section below. That way, if you haven't seen these and you want to pick these up, I'll list them all right down in the description section. You open that up, they'll all be listed out there with the Amazon links. That way it makes it nice and easy for you to go out and pick up any of these. And as always, make sure to give this video a like. Click that subscribe button and the bell notification right next to it, and you can follow me on either my Instagram or my Facebook, which is just the name of the channel, In Search of Physical Media. There's extra hidden stuff I put on there. I had a fun time. I hope all of you have a blessed day, and I look forward to the time we get to do this again real soon.